Nesanel. Horowitz, who is a cybersecurity expert. Nesanel, welcome. We have here a class of approximately 30 who are at the very end of their intensive year of studies. But we have another group who are just signing off, and some of them will come in also, who are just a few months into their studies. So we have people at different stages of the getting into their careers. We have a number of people in this meeting who have already placed in the industry. So we have a variety, but everybody's anxiously awaiting to hear your story and listen to your guidance. So you have the floor. Take it away.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. The context. Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you great.
Yeah.
Okay. So good afternoon, and thank you for Tzomet, all the individuals involved, Mrs. Kshevanovsky and others, allowing me the opportunity to present today. I've heard great things about Tzomet. I know a few guys that went through the program and are still in the program. And from what I've heard, it's a wonderful organization. So
thank you.
I appreciate being able to take part in your class today. So I know you just all finished a long class, right? Like a couple hours, right? So I'll try to be straight on point. I think it'll probably be a little bit less challenging, my talk, but you know, it's what I'm told, it's an informal session, right? So I'll just try. I guess I'll talk a little bit about my background, myself, how I got into security, share some tips and pointers that I've found helpful on my personal journey, and we could do some Q&A. So I have about 6-7 topics that I guess are a little bit of pet peeves that I'd like to cover. I think are helpful. We could recap after each topic, and if anyone has any comments or questions, we could stop and pause after each topic. In general, we could do Q&A afterwards if you'd like. If anything's not clear, just stop me in the middle if I'm saying something that doesn't make sense, So, so just a bit about myself. So, you still hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So a bit about myself. So Baruch Hashem, I've been able to break into the security field. I've about 4+ years now in cybersecurity. I have a bachelor's degree from UMUC, now known as UMGC, University of Maryland Global Campus. I have several well-recognized certifications: CISSP, Security Plus, CEH, et cetera, et cetera. But I will be honest up front. I am by no means, I know I was called an expert before, but I am by no means an expert at anything in this field. And I'm still very much able to relate to those starting out. So in fact, I was, when I decided that I wanted to go out into the world about 7 years ago, we were actually living in Eretz Yisrael. I had literally zero experience in anything IT related, like literally zero. I didn't even type, I didn't even know how to type, I was clueless, let's put it that way. So, we were living in Eretz Yisrael at the time, my wife and I, and at that point we had 3 children. I was an American from Baltimore, just trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, right? So I literally had no clue what I wanted to do. At first I decided maybe business or finance. So I decided I'm going to take the GMAT, try to get into a respectable MBA program. So I actually tried to get into, I did well on the GMAT, did pretty decently, but I was actually turned down from the program that I wanted to get into. So that was that, pretty much. So I was thinking about going into accounting. I'm always, I'm good with numbers. I like numbers. We're always, into baseball statistics and stuff like that. So, I figured maybe accounting. So I actually spoke to a family friend who works as an accountant, and he pretty much encouraged me. He's like, maybe go for cybersecurity if you're not really sure what to do right now. Cybersecurity is the way to go. So I was like, okay. I never considered it, and I don't even know if I knew what it was, but great, So he gave me the name of a guy in Baltimore, and I called him. He pretty much told me he was in the exact same situation about 3 or 4 years earlier. He had also been learning in Israel, no idea what to go into, and he also sort of stumbled onto cybersecurity. So he's got a whole story onto itself. He's actually very successful now, but he was very enthusiastic and encouraging, and so I decided to take the jump and follow suit, and I pretty much followed the same track as he did. I actually, before I enrolled, I wanted to make sure, okay, this is all exciting. It's this great, new field. It's just really cool, but, how do I know it's for me? So I actually scheduled an aptitude test with a program in Israel called Kemach. Maybe some of you have heard of that. So I actually, after taking the test and speaking with an advisor, I see someone said they did it. Okay, cool. So it seemed like it was a good fit, basically. I pretty much made up my mind at that point, but based on my critical thinking skills and ability to focus, we thought it was a good idea. So for the next 3 years, I was in school online. I finished my degree in 2017, actually about a year after we moved back to the States. So we moved back to Baltimore, where I'm originally from. So Baruch Hashem, I got my first job 2017, but even that, I have to be honest, it was not an easy job. It was not an easy road to get that first position. I applied to hundreds of internships, entry-level jobs, and really I got this job because it protects you, to be honest. I have a friend who's also married to a cousin of mine who worked in that same office, and by his word of mouth, I got the job. So, but it was not easy. It wasn't an easy road. Shame I wasn't in Tzomet. Yeah, I don't think I knew it existed. I don't know if it did exist, but so anyway, yeah. So even now, 4 years later, I'm still, Baruch Hashem, I've made a lot of progress, but I'm still learning a lot. There's a lot. I'm still very much in getting used to mode. The field is very complex, as you all know, and there's really a lot to learn. So what I can say is that I think I could speak to you today from the perspective of someone who has been in the trenches, of an entry-level security practitioner. I've learned very valuable lessons, both from experience, from what people have told me, from some mentors. So I'm just going to share with you some pointers. I think I said 6 or 7 that hopefully will be helpful. So just a few topics here that I think are important, that I for sure benefited from. So topic 1, and this is a big topic that everyone likes talking about, so I figured I'd start off with this one. Again, if anyone has any questions, do I have any questions here? Let me just double check. So so the first topic is one that I think comes up a lot, particularly with entry-level cybersecurity folks. That's the topic of education, right? Certifications, degrees. A lot of people believe that education is important. You have to get that background. You have to get those certifications. Others disagree. Some actually disagree vehemently. Doesn't show anything about your hands-on, real-life experience. So I'll just share my take on it. My take is that they're both true, in a certain way. Elo ve'elo. in the real world, certifications do matter, you know. Some companies, like in the government, you'll need certifications. Others, it looks much better on your resume. But at the end of the day, you know, certifications can only do so much. You know, if you can memorize information and take a bunch of certification exams, but you don't have any real, you know, hands-on knowledge, no one's really going to go for that, right? Anyone who wants, any company that's doing things for the world. So you need a little bit of a mix of both. So, you know, a certification like, for example, OSCP, which is a very well-known certification from offensive security. It's a very challenging certification. It's very well respected and very hands-on. That's a type of cert which, you know, pretty much everyone, most people, you know, will give credence to, right? Will respect. But that's not always the case, right? You have other certs that are well-known, CISSP, maybe Security Plus, other, you know, other pretty much just knowledge-based certs that, you know, they are very challenging. It's definitely something to you know, you have to study many months for that. At the end of the day, it doesn't really show the candidate's real world hands-on ability, but it's very good for your resume, right? So that's like one type of cert. Yeah, EJPT or other certs from eLearn security, they're very hands-on, but they're not well respected, they're not well known. So my general approach has been like to try to get a little bit of both, you know, the best of both worlds. You know, get the certs. So I went for you know, Security Plus, CISSP, CEH, just to get those on my resume, because, you know, that very well may get you that job. On the other hand, you want to be more hands-on. You want to be, you know, you want to actually learn stuff. And for that reason, I'm working now on some eLearn security certs. I started with EJPT and now I'm working on EWPT. So bottom line is, you know, go for education and certs that really matter. You know, if you need it, you need it, right? You need a bachelor's, many jobs, then, you know, try to go for it in the most efficient way. Go for the CISSP if you're ready for it, right? But you know, many people suggest, especially now with all these new programs, to go for, you know, for courses, you know, obviously Tzomet and eLearn security and TCM security, all these hands-on courses that are very affordable, you know, teach you all the basics of red teaming and blue teaming, and they'll give you that hands-on experience. Obviously, if you could afford offensive security or SANS, especially once you get that job, a lot of companies will pay for your education, you know, $5,000, $10,000 a year, go for it. But basically, to recap, go for the certifications that matter, preferably the respected ones with, you know, that provide real world skills. Okay, that's that pet peeve. Anyone have any questions on that, or, you know, comments? Okay. So the second topic is getting that first job. You know, like I said, it was challenging for me, and it's definitely a challenge across the board. So, but what I've seen is very helpful is, you know, putting yourself out there on maybe social media or putting yourself out there on the web. You know, post a video on LinkedIn or Twitter about something you just learned. You know, even if you don't think it's a big deal, it doesn't hurt, right? You could go a long way just by putting something out there on social media, right? I mean, just for example, think of LinkedIn, right? So let's say you post something and, you know, some influential person sees your post and likes it, right? So you literally have tens of thousands of people who are going to see that like, right? So right, the repercussions of what you could do when you post online are, you know, are endless. It's not guaranteed, but there's a much better chance that you'll be noticed by someone. Of course, real world networking with real people, you know, that's also great. That goes a long way. Personally, I had an experience. I was desperately looking for a job early on, and I sent out my resume to some random guy who had a company in DC in Silver Spring, and he actually didn't have any openings, but he sat me down and he gave me a mock interview and he helped me out, you know, with my interviewing skills. And that was just from sending it, an email to a random person. It wasn't a big deal, but I pushed myself. I took that initiative, and it was very helpful. And I still am in contact with that guy. So, you never know what these things will lead to, for good or for worse. Okay.
Nesanel,
Which one?
someone asked if you could describe which of the certifications you think are worthwhile and which ones aren't.
So for the ones that I took, I would say, again, there's those two categories. For your resume, I say CISSP is worth it, because everyone loves it. That's just the way it is. Without getting into why, that's just the reality. When it comes to hands-on experience, my best experience was with eLearn, because they have labs, they have videos, they have a great support. Email them, chat with them anytime you want. It's a great organization. So that's what I would say. Okay, so yeah, so just to recap that second point, being vulnerable, using social media, networking. I'll speak for myself, it's not easy. I can't say I've done an awesome job at it, but I'll tell you that the times that I did put myself out there was worth it. Next topic, the last topic sort of segues into this. There's this big concept that's talked about, this big topic that's talked about, which is imposter syndrome. You feel like an imposter in cybersecurity. When you think about putting yourself out there, a lot of people respond thinking, I don't know anything. What do I have to offer at this point that's really going to attract anyone's attention? And it's a legitimate, it's sort of a legitimate response. Not that it's always coming from the greatest place, but cybersecurity is a very multifaceted field, right? I mean, you're talking about networks and servers and cloud and Windows and Linux and identity and credential management, vulnerability management. I mean, you're talking about the ins and outs of all these different tools, right? So there's so much like basic, technical knowledge to be had just to understand the fundamentals of operating systems, networks, applications, different languages, frameworks, all that, right? So you feel like an imposter, right? Because I mean, as a security guy, you're supposed to be telling, the system administrators and the developers what they should be doing for security. But like, I know I felt like this before. You feel like, I don't even like talking about these things in general. Like, I'm not even comfortable talking about these topics in general. Like, how am I supposed to make recommendations to these cool, developers? Like, what do I know? So, and the truth is that for this reason, a lot of people assume, and it's an erroneous assumption, but it's an assumption that people make, that security guys have a very strong IT background. That's just the assumption people make. I don't know where it comes from. Like, they must have been a developer before. It must have been a system administrator before. They know all the inner workings and how everything works together. The reality is, from my experience, is that's not true. I mean, most of the people I've worked with have zero to minimal technical background. And it's just highly improbable. I mean, there's so many millions, like everyone knows, there's millions of job openings, right? To say that they're only going to be filled with, people with the strong IT background is just not, it's not realistic. So you have to start from somewhere, right? Well, some people claim you have to start from IT somewhere, but I don't think it's realistic. So just to deal with, just for I'll just tell you what I have, a perspective that I've tried to work on and what I've gained from others. Others have told me the same thing. So how do you deal with that, right? How do you deal with that feeling like, who am I? I'm totally inadequate. I don't have background, which is a lot of times it's not even so true. Like, a lot of times you do know more than others, but how do you deal with that feeling, So I've found helpful, and others have told me the same thing, is, first and foremost, like, acknowledge that you don't know everything, and no one knows everything. It's just not the reality, right? Like, be confident saying, you know, I don't know what this is. I don't really know how this works, right? And that's okay, right? Like, be honest. You know, being honest is good for yourself. You know, it's good to know what you know and what you don't know. That itself is already a step in the right direction. If you can't put your finger on what you don't know, you can't try to figure it out. So that's first of all. And also, when you're clear and you're honest to others, you gain their respect. That's something that's, I think everyone knows. So focus on like what you know, right? Even if it's like small, it goes a long way for your confidence and for a hiring manager, in front of others. I mean, let's say I'm just thinking of a simple example. I've had this many times, like when I've gone into interviews and I'm like, what do I know? I don't know anything. How am I supposed to, basically what I've been told is, like, as an example, let's say you learn, a tool. Let's take Nessus or something, right? So it's a pretty straightforward tool. It doesn't take such a long time to learn the basics of how to, create a scan, configure the target, etc. So you could talk about your knowledge as, I just learned how to use Nessus to scan a system for vulnerabilities, right? You could say it simply like that. And then, okay, whatever, right? Or you could say, I learned Nessus. It was like really cool. I worked with my team to enumerate the IPs, that were in scope. And, we studied the client and understood their systems and what programs they were probably running, what vulnerabilities might be on those systems. And, we filtered the Nessus scan to scan for those specific vulnerabilities, and then we imported the results into a CSV format, and we were able to run a script with Excel to compare against, previous findings, whatever it is, right? You can make that story of scanning for vulnerabilities a lot more alive, a lot more interesting, and you can even make yourself sound, somewhat technically savvy, right? Even if it's not so complicated, right? But it helps for yourself and others. Public speaking. What does that mean? Okay.
I mean, like presenting it in like a different way. It's a skill in its own.
Right. So you're saying public speaking is like a great, great tool to learn, to succeed. It's true. It's true in any field. Yeah, but I think especially, to get over this imposter syndrome I think it's critical. So just jumping in, I know we're a little bit short on time here, but just a few more topics. This also I've been told by others, it's an important point, is, utilize what you have at your disposal, right? A lot of popular security tools are proprietary tools like Nessus, Burp Suite Professional, Splunk. A lot of other powerful, commonly used tools are not available at home, right? So, sometimes you feel like you're at a disadvantage. Like, how am I supposed to break into this field and learn all these cool things when there's all, I have to pay, $5,000 a year for a license. But the truth of the matter is that there's always what to learn if you're motivated enough. There's a lot of open source tools. Even those tools I mentioned, like Nessus and Burp Suite, there are trial periods, there are free versions. But more basic, you have things like PowerShell, which is, very powerful, just working within the command line, like, in Linux, with shell commands and stuff like that. That's all free, right? You don't, and that's very powerful. And that's the basics of Windows and Linux. So main thing here is just, utilize what's at your disposal, make the most of it. I have to say I'm at fault for doing this a lot myself, but don't blame your lack of growth on, a lack of resources. That's not, it's just not the case. It might take a while to discover, what's interesting for you, what motivates you, that's for sure. But once once you find that sweet spot, enjoy playing around with that, with that tool or with that process, whatever it is. What would you say about time management? Learn more stuff on a basic level or learn less on a deeper level? That's a good question. Yeah, I think you need a little bit of both. It might depend on your learning style. I find that some people are just, I find myself, for example, when I'm not actually doing, it doesn't go in, like I could understand something on an abstract level, but I absolutely cannot do it when push comes to shove. So for me, I feel like hands-on, doing something on a very basic level, even if it's simple things, but if I'm doing it, hands on keyboard, it will go a lot long. It will go a lot longer. It will be a lot more beneficial than learning something, on a deeper abstract level. But that's just me, and everyone. I would say you need a mix of both, but everyone's different. So just the last couple topics here. So sorry, I'm just. Okay, we're all good. Okay, no other comments, right? Okay. So just the last couple things. Something I've found that people emphasize, and it's really crucial in growing in this field, is to try to picture a general career trajectory or track that you see yourself on. I mean, there's a lot of different tracks within security. There's red teaming and pen testing. There's blue teaming, threat hunting, malware analysis. There's a lot of management type of jobs, security assessments, risk management. There's even the business side of things, like being a CISO. So some people have, a affinity with some areas, and some people have an affinity with other areas, right? It's very helpful to, try to see yourself on a certain track and figure out how practically you're going to get there. Maybe that's through education and certifications. Maybe that's through getting, a certain job, entry-level job. For example, like to get into blue teaming, you'd want to, let's say, join a SOC, security operations center. The key is, like, obviously you need to be flexible, and you won't necessarily know what you want to do right away, and things change, obviously, but to have that trajectory and I have to be flexible at the same time is key, I find. And in general, it's good to know that there's two very broad sides of security. I mean, besides for red versus blue, there's also technical versus non-technical, right? Operations versus compliance. The guys who are on the ground doing, implementing, etc. And then the guys on the top, right, who are, making sure that everything's in compliance. This is true, especially in the government. So, and then again, there's jobs that have both, right? You have some very technical jobs like pen testing that you also have to have a certain level of compliance knowledge to be good at, right? If you're pen testing for a PCI compliant company, you're going to need to know about compliance. So it's good to have, those two tracks in mind, and realize that, one might be a good fit for you and one might not. Or maybe you want to mix of both. It's good to realize that they're two very different tracks. So, just to recap, create that career trajectory, understand the different roles, understand where you excel, and how you're going to go about tackling that, which certs are going to fit that role, or just which tools I could play around with that will allow me to get better at that. So, that's key. And then just two last points here. I know we're just a little bit short on time. Try to finish up here. I think it's really important, and I tell myself this all the time. You have to realize, like, especially coming in, especially if, like myself, you don't have any background, like learning hardcore technical skills and even some aspects of some soft skills that you need to be, very successful takes time. It's just the reality. Like, these things are not learned overnight. I find that that's useful for technology, understanding technology and making technology work, efficiently for you in general, is to, step back and relax, right? The technology is there to make life easier for you. The application of the tool is there to be beneficial. Step back, calmly try to understand it. Many times the solution is right in front of you, right? If you don't overthink it. Personally, I know I tend to overthink things a lot, but a lot of times you stand back and you let the the tool or the application, whatever it is that you're using, the software, let it speak to you. And a lot of times it's much more doable than you think. And then just the last thing I would say is, and this is really sort of a topic that we touched on before. You see, a company is willing to train you from beginner and help you to achieve a certification. There are companies like that. I can't say every company is like that. I happen to work for a contractor now that is like that. So, they the trajectory I was talking about before, the guy that I work with, I guess you'd call him my manager, he very much is pushing me in that direction. Like, let's write out a roadmap for the next year or two, right? And they do sponsor that. Most companies do sponsor. They don't necessarily go that extra mile to work it out with you. They sort of just leave it up to you. But they definitely do sponsor. So just the last topic, and this is like, I left this for last because I think this is like, I think everything we spoke about is important, but this is like really important. Is having a mentor or community. As you guys are probably already a little bit of a community, I'm assuming. But it's really, it just tevim mashnayim min echad, right? I mean, you have someone to reach out to when you're stuck. It's a lifesaver. I mean, maybe it's through social media again, maybe it's through LinkedIn, through Twitter, whatever it is. Maybe it's through meeting, having study sessions virtually, in person. At first it could be awkward, but it's a very normal way, especially in cybersecurity. It's a very normal way of growth. Like, you need other people, right? You're not necessarily going to have that person at work that's going to work with you. Even though, you might be working for the same company, you might be on the same team, but you're not necessarily in the same boat. You're not working on the same certification. You don't have the same career goals. It's always important to broaden your network, get to know people. It could be that, you have two guys from Tzomet that are studying for Security Plus. And maybe that's a year after you both graduated from Tzomet, but you see that, you see via LinkedIn that you're both studying for Security Plus. So, you could hook up and be like, hey, let's study, on the phone for, twice a week for a few months, whatever it is, right? I mean, a lot of people are very hesitant with that because they feel like they're encroaching on others, and it's annoying, and they don't want to be a nuisance and all that. But the truth is, most people appreciate that type of collaboration and communication. And I found that goes a long way, having someone to call and to reach out to, and you get stuck on anything, whatever it is. It could be just you get stuck on working on something, and you just need some guidance. How, what's the script? How to, where am I going wrong? Why is this not working out? That type of guidance is crucial, I think, to not feeling stuck and to feeling like, you could tackle anything. There's always someone that knows. There's always, some YouTube video that knows. There's always direction, and never to give up. And that's pretty much it. You know, I'm happy to take any, I know I'm over time now, but I'm happy to take any questions like offline, LinkedIn, email, and you know.
Nesanel, thank you so much. I
Sure.
see that Malia asked about your work hours. Do you work regular hours or part-time, or how does it work?
I do. I work for, right now I'm working for a government contractor. So it's very 9 to 5.
Okay. Nesanel, I greatly appreciate your honesty. And I know that a lot of the things that you talked about, imposter syndrome and other things, resonate with a lot of our students. So I really appreciate that. You also emphasize the benefit of community. And like you said, our Tzomet classes, we have created a little bit of community. We're working on now creating on LinkedIn a group for our graduates and so forth, to people to be able to continue to communicate with one another after they finish the course. Right now, during the course, our Slack channels are really lively and really
Wow.
a great source of support for the students. So we do want to continue that. So again, I greatly thank you and wish you much bracha v'atzlacha, and thanks for being with us, and all the best
Sure,
to you.
sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for all your comments. And thank you.
Good night.
Okay, good night. Take care.